Good evening and a very warm welcome to this Allt Whiskey live stream tonight. I'm your host, Jeroen Wolfers with Allt Whiskey, and I'm here tonight with Loch Lomond's David Lind. Hi, David. How are you tonight?
Good, thank you. Good. Nice to be here.
Lovely. And with Iain McAllister from Glen Scotia. It's also so very nice to have you here.
Hello there. Yep. Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
So tell me, guys, where are you at? I mean, David, that looks like work to me. I was.
Well, yeah, thankfully work, probably a little bit of pleasure as well. I am in the Loch Lomond tasting room, so the tasting room at Loch Lomond Distillery, and I think most people have gone home for the evening, so I think I'm here myself, which is quite dangerous.
Oh no!
Yeah. So it's literally an Aladdin's cave. You know, it's full of treasures, and you can see some of them behind me. And these are all samples of spirit styles, single casks, and various whiskies that we taste with guests when they come to Loch Lomond. So it's quite a nice place to be.
Looks fantastic. And Iain, where are you? It looks almost similar without the backlight, though.
Yeah, yes, I wish I could say I was in my house, but no, I'm afraid I'm like David. I'm at the distillery, so this is where I undertake my day job, pretty much sitting in this position here. So, yeah.
Oh, really? Yeah, work. Yeah.
Well, that's it. Absolutely.
That is tough. David, tell me, please, what do you do at Loch Lomond Distillery?
So I work more on the brand ambassador side. So I've got a commercial role, and then I also travel around educating on whiskey. So I've spent quite a long time and a lot of time in Sweden doing a lot of tastings and master classes. So I've got a commercial role, and then I've also got an educational role at the distillery.
Nice. And Iain, you are the Master Distiller of Glen Scotia Distillery, is that right?
Yes, absolutely. I started off in Glen Scotia a few years ago now as the assistant manager. I was in that role for a matter of weeks, really months, a couple of months at most, I think. And then it was the distiller, the distillery manager for 3-4 years. And then after that, I spent 10 years I guess earning the title Master Distiller. So yeah, it's been quite a journey. So lovely, it really is great to see the place doing well.
Yeah, fantastic. So I guess you have both had the benefits of be able to be drinking whiskey at work. That seems nice.
Yeah.
Gentlemen, we are here tonight we are going to show you some news from both the distilleries. David, you won the imaginal coin toss, so perhaps you want to go first, and what are we going to talk about here?
Yeah, I mean, we're going to taste 3 whiskies ultimately from Loch Lomond. 2 of the whiskies may be familiar to people, but we'll talk a little bit more about them. But one of the whiskies will be totally new, and this is a new launch that's happening in Sweden on the 1st of December. So that'll be quite exciting, and I think some people listening may have already received some samples, but people will get to see the whiskey for the first time tonight, and we can talk about how it tastes, and it will be available on shelf on the 1st of December. So that's the whiskies we'll be tasting. I think the first thing I wanted to do briefly was just, if people are listening and they're not familiar with the distillery, I thought I would mention 2 or 3 things quickly about the distillery.
Absolutely.
Thank you. It's Loch Lomond Distillery, and it's situated on the southern banks of Loch Lomond. Oh, you've got a visual. Very good.
I actually thought, hey, how close are these distilleries to each other? So I thought I make a map.
Oh, great. Okay, that's brilliant. So basically, you can see Glasgow on the map, and that's where I live in the north of Glasgow, and it takes me about 30 minutes to drive up past Clydebank, Dumbarton, and to the distillery, which is based in a small place called Alexandria, as I say, just on the southern tips of Loch Lomond there. And Loch Lomond is the largest loch or lake. In Scotland we call a lake a loch, and it's the largest loch by surface area in the UK. So it's quite a famous landmark, and the distilleries is quite famous as a result of that.
Looks amazing.
It's beautiful. Yeah, I've even been swimming in there, obviously in the summer. But it's a beautiful place, and you can do a lot of sailing and things. There's like 39 islands on Loch Lomond, so it's quite a beautiful place. There's a lot of nice mountains around where you can climb up and look down on the loch as well. So it really is it's a really nice place. And
fantastic.
It's officially in the Highlands, so it's classed as a Highland distillery. Now, Glasgow's in the Lowlands, so I travel from the Lowlands to the Highlands to work
every day. Yeah,
or every day when I come in. Sure, yeah, and I guess I would say it makes a traditional sort of Highland style. Typically, it's very rich, it's very smooth, it's very balanced, and it tends to be very fruit driven. Most of the maturation is in ex-bourbon barrels, so you get a lovely sweet vanilla note to it, and most of the core expressions have a little bit of smokiness in them, just a touch, just on the finish. So that's what I would say is the core style of the distillery.
Right.
It's a little bit different in that we have a cooperage on site. It's only 4 distilleries, I think, to have a cooperage on site.
Right.
Where we make and prepare all our own barrels, and we have quite an interesting distillation setup, which I'll talk about in a bit more detail later. But what if we taste the first whiskey? Shall we?
What a great idea! Absolutely.
Yeah. Great. Okay. So what we've got here is this is a little bit unusual for Loch Lomond. As I mentioned, we typically at Loch Lomond we go to a lot of trouble to create flavour during fermentation and distillation. So most of the maturation tends to be in bourbon, so we can understand the flavour differences created at that earlier stage of production. But what we've done is we've created, and this is an exclusive for Sweden, is we've created Loch Lomond Madeira Cask.
I'll show it as well too.
Yeah. So this is so it's got that Loch Lomond character that I mentioned, that really fruit-driven style. Those orchard fruits, pear, peach, apricot, apple. But what we've got with the Madeira cask, Madeira we've used a sweet Madeira wine here, and it's similar to sherry in the sense that it gives that lovely flavour. But the Madeira wine it's almost given it a little more of a subtle flavour enhancement than perhaps sherry would. Sherry tends to be quite, you can notice sherry right away.
Right, yeah.
A very dominant flavour. Whereas the Madeira cask, I think, is a little more subtle, a bit more gentle.
Right.
And this is all unpeated, so it's really fresh, clean, crisp, and then you get sort of dates, figs, maybe a little bit of marzipan, hazelnut.
Yes, like you said, something nutty. Yeah. It's beautiful. Yes, it's very soft.
See what I mean? It's very soft, and I think what we've tried to do here is you want all that rich, even like a marzipan note.
Yeah.
You want all that lovely influence from the Madeira cask and the sweetness, the nuttiness, the spiciness, but it shouldn't overpower the base, the distillery style. So as I say, I think we've captured that fruity orchard fruit character. It spends some time in American oak ex-bourbon barrels before a finishing period in Madeira. So you get all that lovely sweetness and the vanilla from the bourbon, and then you get the lovely kind of nuttiness and the dark fruits from the Madeira. So I hope you like it. It's so that, as I said, this is a new expression coming exclusively to Sweden on the 1st of December. So I think some people may have samples. I think some people were sent some samples out before. I don't know, but I hope you have. And Slanjavar, cheers. Cheers.
So that's coming the 1st of December, but it's adding up to the lineup, really, to the Loch Lomond lineup of what we have today in Sweden.
That's right, yeah, and that's the other 2 whiskies that we'll taste. The first one is that we'll taste is the Loch Lomond original, and this has been a consistent presence in Sweden for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's number think maybe number 4, number 5 selling single malt in Sweden. So it's been a regular feature for some time. But what it does is, I think it allows me to do two things. One is it allows me to talk a little bit about the distillation capability that we have, which I think is quite interesting, and
it's
it
quite
also
unique, yeah.
to showcase what I would say is the classic, Highland style that I mentioned at the beginning. This fruity, sweet, but a little bit of smokiness as well. So, if it's okay, will I talk a little bit about the distillation now? Do you want me to mention that?
Yes, please do.
Yeah. So what I think is quite interesting. This is the story basically. Is what we have at Loch Lomond is we have different types of still. So we have long straight neck stills and we have short swan neck pot stills. And you've got a picture as well. You're great with the pictures. Fabulous.
Yeah.
So what we've got is we've got different shapes of still. Now, what that essentially does is it allows us to create different styles of whiskey at the distillery. On the left, you've got the straight neck stills, which are much taller. They create a lighter, more delicate floral style of whiskey. You've got the pot stills on the right that create a sort of heavier, oilier style whiskey. One's not better than the other. They're just different. And what we can do at Loch Lomond is we can actually take different distillates from these different stills, and we can blend them together after maturation. So this is the beauty, and this is what I wanted to talk about with Loch Lomond Original. Is in here in Loch Lomond Original, we have spirit that's been made in the straight neck stills, spirit that's been made in the swan neck stills, peated and unpeated whiskies. So there's actually 4 different styles of whiskey in here, and after maturation, those different styles are brought back together to create Loch Lomond Original. And what I think that does is it brings layers of depth, complexity, and a togetherness, because you're managing to bring those different styles together, and it gives it a lot more structure as well. And again, I think it's something quite unique to Loch Lomond to be distilling these different styles and bringing them together in our single malt products. So if we can have that thought, and then we can taste the Loch Lomond Original here. Yeah. And again, this is what I would say is it's almost like our DNA, our sort of our signature, our true kind of our house style, if you like.
Right.
And then what we've got is that lovely fruity character on the nose. And again, this is all the orchard fruits that I mentioned, the sort of pear, peach, apple, apricot. And you've got a lovely sweetness. This is all American oak, ex-bourbon barrels. So you get that kind of vanilla character to it. And then if we just take you get a lovely, also very good, smooth, smoky character in. Now it's not too much peat. It's almost like a warm hug, right? Yeah. In a glass, and you get that lovely smooth smokiness in the finish. And that's what I would say is probably a very classical, traditional Highland style whiskey. And I think it's just lovely on a cold evening next to the fire. I can't think of a better dram.
But the last one is even more peaty.
It is, yeah. And as you know, in Sweden, there's peated whiskies are popular.
Huge, absolutely.
Hugely, yeah. And again, we had an opportunity to submit a new product for a listing, and the brief was a heavily peated whiskey.
And said and done.
Said and done. So
that's what you write on the bottle.
And again, this is very, so it's heavily peated. So all of the malted barley in here is 50 ppm, 50. So that's it's up there. The Islay distilleries are sort of around about that level, sort of 49, 50, 51. So it's up there in terms of peated level, but it's Highland peat, and so it's probably not quite as pungent as an Islay whiskey. And then also one of the things we've tried to do here is have this have this heavily peated whiskey, but at the same time, we've tried to make it not just peat, not only smoke. We've tried to kind of create that lovely heavily peated, medicinal, smoky, spicy, all these phenols there, but we've tried to make it not just smoke or peat. We've tried to kind of keep that fruity character and then create and bring in some of that sweetness as well. So again, we're harnessing the distillery style with the fruity, with the sweetness, but we've just really, we've ramped up the peat level.
Exactly.
So we've almost like supercharged the smoke. So you've got that really heavily peated style that everyone loves. But again, you do have other layers of flavor. It's not just one dimensional. You have the lovely fruity character and the sweetness as well. So this is the Loch Lomond heavily peated, and then
must be popular here as well after tasting it.
Yeah, it is, and I think this launched last year, about this time last year.
Yeah,
and it's been a big success, as you can imagine. So
it's really.
So this
is really good here by the fire.
Good, yes, I told you. So I think that's my the summary of the three products. I think the original is the sort of the mainstay, but what we've done is we've created a heavily peated for the peat lovers, and then we've created something quite unusual and different for Loch Lomond with the Madeira Cask finish that's quite adds a lot of lovely flavour, but it doesn't dominate the spirit. You still get that distillery character, but with all that warmth and spice and nuttiness and sweetness from the Madeira wine cask. So
very nice.
Yeah.
So the Loch Lomond Madeira Cask is due the 1st of December.
Yeah.
And what we already have in the lineup is the original that is currently at Systembolaget, and also the heavily peated one.
That's right. Yeah.
So you can try them all.
Try them all.
Yeah. So Iain, you have a whiskey coming out already on Friday. It's fantastic.
Indeed, yes, indeed, and it is something special. It is obviously the got to think now, the second seasonal release.
Okay.
So yes, it really is a fantastic, and I'll actually show you. I have the bottle and the box here, so it makes slightly more sense. So
look at that.
Look at that little beauty. Okay.
I'll just pop it up on the screen as well with the Swedish numbers and stuff. So it's launching the 26th of November. That's this Friday, just a couple of days ago. A couple of days away, I should say. I'm ahead of myself. So how is this in comparison to the other Scotia whiskies? What would you say is special about this?
Well, it's obviously a seasonal release. So, it's something special. It's that time of year. It gives the whiskey drinkers a chance to obviously pick up on something a little special at this time of year. You have the festival releases, and these releases are obviously something. They're short-lived. They are limited editions. So the seasonal release is exactly the same. It's a limited edition. It's basically it's distillations from 2009, a combination of first fill bourbon, some refill American oak. We'll vat that together, and then we'll fill it off into some Oloroso, first fill Oloroso, and some heavily charred American oak. We're going to leave it, and then obviously that basically finishing is going to take a year. So the older stuff, the first fill bourbon and the refill American oaks, 11 years. So you're culminating in 12-year-old there. So it's a fantastic, it's got that Campbelltown aspect running through it there. It's got the richness. It really is a fantastic dram. It is a fantastic dram. It's so complex. There's complexity there, but it's got the oiliness. It's got the salinity. It's got that Campbelltown DNA running through it there. So this one of the best. Fantastic dram.
It's good. Yes, the saltiness.
Yeah.
Is that a special Campbelltown or Scotia?
Yeah, absolutely. You're getting the subtle salt, the salinity. If the salinity is going to be there, it's something that's It should be there ever so slightly back of the palate there. But you should, the complexity, these oils are obviously flavour driven. You're getting the congeners, you're getting the higher alcohols, obviously they're culminating through maturation in that flavour profile. So whether you're getting you're getting toffee from the casks, you get a little bit of apple there, which you take right through from the new make spirit. It's warm spice, a little bit nutty. You're getting everything that floral, obviously the Oloroso influence there. You're getting orange citrus notes. It's incredibly complex, but you would expect that from Campbelltown. You would expect the use of casks versus the regional style to obviously be quite evident there. And obviously the strength, 54.7%, it's really accessible. It's a wonderful dram. It really is. Particularly, there's obviously been some fantastic Glen Scotias recently, but this one's up there in my opinion.
Right. And this is a limited release, as you said. I think Sweden is good for 1,000 bottles. 1,000 barrels, that would be something. 1,000 bottles, and these will go fast, I believe. So that's very interesting. Coming on Friday, that is. But this is also adding to the Glen Scotia lineup in Sweden. So there are some other bottles that we like to talk about as well. Perhaps the double cask is the first one.
Yeah, absolutely. The double cask, fantastic. The double cask, it was one of the earlier Glen Scotias, between the double cask 15, I've got to think now, double cask 15 and Victoriana. And it's as I say, it's a non-age statement. It's a young year whiskey, which means nothing, and obviously a quality point of view to me anyway as a distiller. And it's first fill bourbons. It's matured in first fill bourbons, but it's got a short 9 months PX, a butt, sherry butt finish in there. So wonderful whiskey, and it's one of these whiskies where I think it's a really good starting off point with Glen Scotia, and not just from a whiskey drinking point of view. It's the start of the story of Glen Scotia. Really, it's the start of the renaissance of Glen Scotia, if you like. It was the whiskey which obviously the guys, the team, the team of made, that new make spirit. They basically put together, at the distillery. So it's a wonderful whiskey. It really is. It's got the rich spiciness. It's there's creme caramel, a little bit of bite there, absolutely. But
all right,
it really works well. And then you get into the complexity again. Real oiliness, the fruit-driven flavour profile there coming through, the bourbon influence, yet you get that richness from the sherry.
Right.
And it's just enough, it offsets it. And it works well. And obviously the strength, as I say, 46%. So,
all right, yeah.
So a wonderful dram, it really is, and works so well. Really works well.
And this is a bit special because you can order it now from Systembolaget, but only until the 1st of December. Then it will vanish from the Systembolaget to reappear in the ordinary assortment in February, I think it was. So we'll have a short break due to, reasons, I guess, from Systembolaget. But you can, as of today, until the 1st of December, get a hold of the Glen Scotia double cask in Sweden.
You heard it here.
Yeah. But there are also finer things, I guess, because this one I have not tasted. The 25-year-old is also up for grabs, sort of. Yeah.
And it's to be fair, the 25-year-old, for me, it's simplicity. I love the bourbon influence, and that's what you get with bucket loads with the 25-year-old. Sometimes it doesn't need to get too technically complex with different casks, and sometimes the simplest way is the best way. And the 25-year-old World Whisky of the Year 2021.
All right,
that tells a story in its its own right. So yeah, I mean, it started life off as refill bourbons, and it's got a short 12 months finish with first fill bourbons, and it's as simple as that. It really is. Probably, yeah, and probably out of the whiskies that's available at Glen Scotia, it's probably one of the more maritime. It really is. It's got so much that coastal, maritime, oceanic influence. Like it's that's a brilliant picture. That obviously.
Yeah, I take back the map to show you where Campbelltown is, and it's really almost surrounded by water, almost entirely. So I can see where you get the maritime flavors from.
Absolutely, and I think what's important about that map is it showed you how Campbelltown developed. It was strategically positioned. The early half of the 19th century, so it was obviously. It was spot on for access to Glasgow, for Liverpool, for Belfast, for the Americas, for Europe. So that accessibility was a major.
Yeah. What do they call it? The whiskiest of whiskey towns, or something like that, right?
Whiskey's place in the world.
That's it. Okay. So I think Lomond is quite whiskey as well, and perhaps we should get back to you, David, and talk a bit about the distillery, because it's quite special. Just all the stills that you have. We tried to count them just before, and I don't know if you got to 11 or 13 or something like that. But there are some really different stills in Loch Lomond distillery.
Yeah. Loch Lomond's been making whiskey for a long time. Since 1840. So over 200 years, and I think for all the different stills to make sense, I think people have to understand that the history of Loch Lomond is actually making blended Scotch, a lot of very good blended Scotch, and it's only perhaps in the last decade or so that there really has been the pivot towards focusing much more on the single malt range. Previously, we made grain whiskey and malt whiskey, but most of that a lot of it was used for blended whiskies. And when you are, the interesting thing is when you're making blended whiskey, and I guess most people will know this, but you need grain whiskey and different styles of malt whiskey, to layer the flavors and create the recipe, that you need. And the philosophy of previous owners was that they wanted to be able to do that, but to be self-sufficient. There's an old Asian expression: "Don't breathe through someone else's nose," because one day you might not be able to breathe. And rather than buy all the different different styles of whiskey they need from the market, what they've done is they've created a very unique setup at Loch Lomond that allows us to be self-sufficient and create all these different styles of single malt, to have one of only 7 grain distilleries in Scotland, to have a coffee still that makes grain whiskey from 100% malted barley. I mentioned earlier our own cooperage, and we bottle all our own products. So it is a very unique setup that we have here, and from a distillation point of view. And I've worked on whiskey for a long time, 20 years, and I've been at Loch Lomond for 5 years. And when I first arrived, I was like, whoa, you can do this. Is that even legal? Are you allowed to do that? And it's just, it was amazing, some of the stuff that goes on. And I think that's from a whiskey enthusiast point of view. People come here and they look around and they're like, wow, this is incredible, because there's a lot of things that are done differently during fermentation and distillation. And the master blender will sort of, the way he puts it is, we go to a lot of trouble to create flavor during fermentation and distillation, because we have all these assets available. And that's really, I think what's unique about Loch Lomond is this distillation setup, and why we can make so many different styles of single malt under one roof, using the different stills, different peat levels, different cut points, and it really is an interesting place.
But I have to get back to the straight neck stills because they look so different from what you usually see in most distilleries. And what character do they give to the spirits, would you say? Can you define that? I mean,
Yeah, I mean, yes. I think the fact that there's two things I guess we better be careful and not get too technical. But what's different is that they're double distilled as any other normal, malt distillery. But what's quite unique is in the spirit still there are 17 copper plates inside. Now they're not activated like a column still, but what they do is they create a huge amount of copper contact and they create a reflux. And that the effect of that is to almost purify the spirit somewhat, and that allows us to take the spirit off at different cut points. I'm guessing everyone that's listening will understand cut points, but it's when you start to you take the 4 shots and then you start to take the heart of the spirit, and it starts here and stops here. And I mean, Iain can tell us what it is for Glen Scotia, but I'm guessing it'll be sort of 70 something down to high 50s or something like that. Whereas on the straight neck stills, the tall stills, we can start at a very high cut point of 90 all the way down to 65. So we can do that as a wide cut, but we can also take a higher cut of between 90 and 80. And what you're basically doing is you're capturing different groups of alcohols, and therefore your flavour is different. So I would say, broadly speaking, that the straight neck stills create a lighter, more floral, fruity style whiskey. But if you take that higher cut, then you can really sort of concentrate those fruit flavours effectively. So we can use these stills and the different cut points in order to create some of the different styles of whiskey that we make here at Loch Lomond. So they're very versatile. Some people might have heard of Lomond stills, and these aren't Lomond stills, but they're probably Lomond 2.0. And what they've done is they were designed back in the 30s, or the Lomond stills were designed back in the 30s in order to be versatile, so they could create different styles of whiskey at one distillery. And these are the next generation of them. And that's how we can create a lot of the different flavours that you taste in original, and then also the different flavours that you taste in the peated whiskey as well. So it is very versatile.
So
the capability.
So the more copper contact makes a lighter, more floral spirits, sort of.
Yes, and the fact that they're taller does that also, and then it also allows us to take it off at a higher ABV, which allows you to capture different styles of or different profiles and different flavor profiles of the spirit. So that's essentially how we can create the 13 different styles or whatever that we spoke about earlier.
Yeah, well, that's so cool, because your own grain distillery, coffee still, some ordinary, pot stills, and the straight neck stills. Yeah, that gives you a really nice palette of spirits to blend, to mix.
Yeah. So it really is. It's quite unique in that regard. So it is. It's a good place.
Yeah. But Iain, I think you think Scotia is a good place as well, don't you?
Absolutely.
And you have some 27 stills in Scotia. How does that? No, sorry, I'm just kidding.
I wish I did. Then
really?
I could give you more than a 1,000 bottles of the festival release. No, two. Yeah.
2 stills. Yeah, but that might be enough. What do you say?
Absolutely. It's I mean, obviously Glen Scotia is it's part of Campbelltown, isn't it? And that it's got that Campbelltown style about it. The way it was originally built. It's evolved over the years. It's grown slightly larger, but it's not huge. That's a great shot. So that's obviously in the foreground is the wash still, and just behind it is the spirit still there. So it's very much as I say, producing that fantastic new make spirit. As David was mentioning there, obviously it's slightly heavier, slightly oilier. And it's really even at that stage there is salinity in it. And it's really a creation of the whole process, if you like. The malted barley I've used the same supplier now for 13, 14 years. And it's, there we go, fantastic. So it's all really good malted barley. And that really makes a difference whether it's peated or unpeated. The way we mash it, really old mash tun we've got, well over 100 years old. So you're brilliant shot. So yeah, so you're really looking to obviously the worts that I'm getting from that mash down there are actually quite cloudy. So that really goes against, technically what you would expect. So slightly cloudy worts, it's quite rich in the sugars. That's obviously mashing in. So you're breaking the starches down there. You're releasing these sugars. And it's very much a hands-on job. It's really a skillful job. There's very little automation to the point of obviously switching pumps on and off. So the rest is obviously done by the operator. So yeah, and that really helps. I think that the whole process, when you get everything in balance, when you get everything to come together, right through the obviously the fermentation, which is technically the obviously the most important point. Small quantities of wort versus the type of yeast that we've got, distillers M strain yeast. When all that comes together, then absolutely, you're through secondary fermentation, long fermentations.
You have really long fermentations, don't you?
Absolutely.
So what are we talking? Like, how long was it?
Well, I tend to work with a combination of short, medium, long fermentations. But in an average, when you do the maths, you're about 128.8 hours with the fermentation. So that is long. But it works well, and every distillery is different. There's certain parameters that you can follow, but you've really got to know what works for you regionally, what works for the distillery, what gives you that fantastic flavour profile. But I've found through through the years and working quite closely with John Peterson, who was at Loch Lomond, that was the optimum for Glen Scotia and for that Campbelltown style, and that's really, really important. It's that complexity, that oiliness, salinity, as I say. But yeah, wonderful fruit flavors too from these higher alcohols, acids, esters, etc. So.
Right. So the barley, where does that come from? Are you using Scottish barley? Right.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's all east coast of Scotland. It's all from Glenesk, Maltons, from Montrose.
Right.
And I'd say, it's the same supplier I've been using. So once a week, we'll get 28 ton of malt delivered. And that's pretty much a week's production for us. That's 10 mashes at 2.8 ton. Which will give you roughly slightly over 11,000 litres of new make spirit, reduced 63.5. So it's, in an average year, we'll produce about 540,000 litres of alcohol, which is not huge in whiskey making standards, but it's really good quality stuff, and that's that's that quality. So.
We need to compare with Loch Lomond as well. How much do you produce a year? Because you're a big distillery.
Yeah, much bigger in scale. So basically, if in terms of malt, in terms of single malt, 3 million litres of alcohol per year.
There you go. Yeah. Okay.
And then we've got 2 million that we make in the coffee still with the 100% malted barley, but we can't call that single malt. So it's really 5 million in terms of litres of alcohol produced by malted barley, but 2 million is in the coffee still, so it's more of a single grain. 3 million as a single malt, and then the grain distillery itself can produce up to 20 million litres of alcohol per year. So the scale is completely different. We don't always every year run it at full capacity, but if we were to, it would be up to 20 million. So it's a different size and style of operation.
Yeah, absolutely. But do you guys work together something, Scotia and Lomond, being part of the same group since quite long now? And does that look?
I mean, absolutely. I mean, basically, you know, we work very well. You know, I mean, Ian's involved in basically working with all the operations team here and making everything flow smoothly. And Ian and I spend a lot of time together, not just online, but in person as well. And we've done
imagine that.
we've done quite a few trips together. And we've had
nice.
a lot of fun doing it. And so Ian and I are friends. Yeah.
We saw it on the map how close you guys are to each other. What's that? A 3-hour drive, or something like that? Or
3.5. Yeah,
3.5. Okay.
I think it doesn't look that far, but you have to go all the way up. You won't see it on the map, maybe, but there's a place called Inverary, and that's like you know, that's the turning point. You see the kind of Loch Lomond and the Trossachs National Park.
Right. Yeah.
If you look to the left of that, to the west, then you'll see a place called Inverary. And that's kind of like the halfway point, and then you go all the way up there, and then you turn and you come all the way down. But the problem is the roads are a little bit winding, and there's very often stray sheep and things, so you can't go too fast. So
all right.
3.5 hours, but it's a beautiful drive, particularly when you get down onto the peninsula there, and you've got the ocean on both sides. It's lovely.
I can only imagine. David, we have a viewer question, especially for you. I'll pop it on the screen here. So it's from Mats in Gothenburg. And he says, as a golfer, I bought a bottle of Loch Lomond, the Open 2021 in September. It was co-produced with Colin Montgomery. Now I'm wondering if it's possible to get the bottles that it's Seve Ballesteros and or Jack Nicklaus signatures on.
Well, they weren't produced by us.
Really?
Yeah, so I don't. I wish I could get them as well. But no, we partnered with Colin Montgomery, Darren Clark, Lee Westwood, and these guys. But to my knowledge, we haven't partnered with them. We don't have bottles with Seve and Jack's signatures on there. Not that I know of, and I'd be most upset if I didn't have one, if we did make them. So I don't think we do.
Another question, does golf go with the job when you work in Scotland, or do you have to be a golfer?
Yeah, it helps. I think it's you know, it's two of Scotland's sort of finest exports, if you like, you know, Scotch whisky and golf, and both quite often at the same time. Certainly, you know, if you play golf like I do, you know, a few drams on the way around helps.
Yeah.
You know, so I think you know, it's on a serious note. I think it's been wonderful for Loch Lomond, because it's really, you know, the Open Championship's the largest golf tournament in the world, and you know, it's allowed us to take Loch Lomond to more people more quickly in Asia, America, and elsewhere, and Sweden. So it's been a good thing for us. And as you say, it's a perfect partnership, isn't it? I mean, I think most golfers like whiskey, and most whiskey drinkers like golf, and certainly in Scotland. So
it's a perfect match, yeah.
It is, yeah. I
reckon it would be worse if you took like a rugby and whiskey. I don't think that's such a good match.
Not
really?
Quite the same. Not quite the same.
Perhaps afterwards. I wouldn't know. Mats say thanks so much for the answer, and he'll try to get hold of Seve Ballesteros some
if he has images of it, or he can find anything, you know, send it to me or Cecilia or you, and we'll investigate further. But let me know.
That is great. We also have Alf is thanking for an information presentation. That's nice. And should we do a recap, perhaps, of what we've been showing tonight in whiskies? We started off with this little darling.
Mm-hmm. Oh, you want me to recap? Yeah, will I say something?
I think so. I think you do it better than I do.
Sure, yeah. So it's the Loch Lomond. It's unpeated. It's matured in bourbon and then further matured in Madeira cask. So what that does is it brings a lovely dates, figs, marzipan, and it brings a lovely kind of sweet dark fruit flavour to it. And the Madeira cask isn't perhaps as powerful as a sherry cask, so it brings quite a subtle influence to it. And you've still got some of that sweet orchard fruit character that's very typical of Loch Lomond.
Less tannins than sherry, perhaps.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, good shout. Yeah.
And Ian, you showed us this, which is due Friday.
Absolutely, wonderful seasonal release. As I say, 12-year-old Glen Scotia, 12-year-old distillation from 2009. A combination of first fill bourbon, refill American oak, and it's obviously finished in that combination of Oloroso and heavily charred American oak. And wonderful. It really is. On the nose, you're getting toffee, apple, sea spray. That lovely vanilla aspects here. The Campbelltown esque flavor profile, and the palate is slightly more warm spice, a bit nutty, a little bit floral. Absolutely, some orange citrus peel, melted brown sugar. Wonderful dram. The finish, long, nutty again. Finish with pears and a little bit of that dried citrus peel. So yeah, wonderful dram.
Very nice. And it's in Sweden on Friday. And the Madeira Cask will be here on the 1st of December. So that's also quite soon. Something for whiskey lovers for Christmas, perhaps. We'll put some. I think from Scotia we have a video with some food pairings as well, and we'll put it up on Facebook and our website as soon as we can. And I saw they paired it with salmon, so perhaps for the Swedish Christmas table, salmon and will be a big ingredient. That might be something. But I imagine that Madeira Cask will do fine in by Christmas as well. So, guys, I think we should wrap it up. And hold on, one last question from Håkan Pete Dahlberg. How many years have you released season release? I think you said.
This is the second one. Yeah. I've got to think sometimes. Between the festivals and the seasonal release.
Yeah, I think the seasonal's just 2. I think the festival's 4. Iain, 4.
Yeah, that's right. So the first seasonal release was the sherry double cask. I don't know whether you that reached Sweden or not, but yes. So yeah,
I think it did. It did, but in smaller quantities, but it did. Yep.
All right. Okay, Göran says, Iain, I brought a dram to Stockholm Beer and Whiskey Show, but you were not there, so David took it.
Oh, here now.
Sorry, Iain.
That's what friends are for, or?
And Iain, I just want to tell you, it was delicious. And I finished it all.
Well, thank you, David, and thank you, Goram. As I say, I will catch up with you, I promise. And sorry I missed you there. So absolutely, thank you for the thought. And thank you, David. Brilliant.
Well, gentlemen, thanks so much for being with us tonight. Time flies, and we had our 45 minutes, which was the goal for tonight. And I just want to thank you so much. And Sláinte.
Sláinte. Take care. Thank you.
Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you.
See you soon.
Cheers. Thanks, guys. Bye. Good night.
Right.